Rachel, you led us off today. Perhaps you want to close us out with a few of your final thoughts.
Thank you, Andy. I would recommend be proactive in your compliance monitoring. Include arbitration provisions to minimize the time and expense of resolving disputes. Include express provisions to allow employer, whether it's board or director or committee member discretion, to interpret your executive compensation provisions. That helps to achieve the employer's objectives.
Thank you so much, Jim. We then heard from you. Perhaps you want to close us out with a few of your key takeaways as well.
Oh, sure. I'll respect the fact that we're going a little bit long here. I think the bottom line is that you've heard a lot over the last 2 hours about a lot of different factors that come into play in the executive pay development. It is incredibly hard to kind of shift through this and determine what is most relevant for a particular company. I will always caution all of my clients that the business strategy really has to inform everything you do about executive pay. Market information is useful, benchmark information is useful, but at the end of the day, your problems are unique to your company, and that's what you really need to focus on is internally.
Thank you so much. Shaun, a few takeaways from yourself as well, please.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think the biggest takeaway from my slides includes ESG. So I think if you're listening today, if you're public or if you're private, and it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, ESG is important and it's relevant. So all companies should think about the appropriateness of linking performance with ESG objectives, and at a minimum, disclose your ESG practices on your website, and if you are including them in your incentive plan design, include it in your proxy statement.
Thank you so much, Stephen. A few final thoughts from yourself before we close.
Sure. My key points would be, first, that the basic objectives of executive pay haven't changed for over 100 years, but that the historical shift from value sharing plans to competitive pay targets has really created two critical problems. That competitive pay really undermines the alignment of cumulative pay and cumulative performance because translating market pay into shares creates an inherent performance penalty. And it's led to widespread reliance on poor measures of executive pay. Percent of pay at risk is a measure of incentive strength, and competitive position target is a measure of retention risk and shareholder cost. Analysis of relative pay versus relative performance provides much better measures of the objectives of executive pay. The slope of the regression trend line is a measure of incentive strength. The intercept is a negative measure of retention risk, and a positive measure of shareholder cost. And then finally, better measurement highlights three critical shortcomings: reliance on competitive pay, paying for industry performance, and short time horizons of performance measurement and pay up. Thank you.